Thanks, Dave. Good evening, everybody. I'm Nat Parker, and yeah, come on up. Todd and Chris, come up so I can introduce you to the group before we do the presentation. I appreciate the invitation to come back. I was here last month, so I recognize a lot of faces. Again, I'm Nat Parker. I'm the project manager for Element Power's Wildflower project. I'd like to introduce my colleagues Todd Matson, who's Element's Director of Environmental Services. Todd is a trained wildlife biologist, and he helps oversee all of the work we do from a permitting and environmental perspective across the U.S. I'm also pleased to be joined by Chris Taylor, who is the Chief Development Officer of Element Power. Chris is one of 3 officers of our company. He oversees all development of solar and wind projects across the U.S. market. So I hope you guys feel welcome to speak to all of us tonight, and I hope that you realize it's a reflection of our commitment to bring down our top brass to answer your questions, work with you, and talk with you. So we'll stick around after the meeting if anyone wants to sit around and talk, duke it out, whatever you want, we'll be here. So we appreciate the chance to talk. So you guys, maybe you should go because it's a little tight. Sorry.
You know, it's rude to interrupt, but I had forgotten to say one thing. It is taco night, okay? Weeville is very supportive of us, so please have something to eat, something to drink, okay? They're very nice, and they do take care of us about this stuff. I appreciate it. So anyway, I'm sorry, but I wanted to make sure everybody knows there's tacos over there.
Wow, I'm surprised everyone isn't leaving to get tacos. Is this sound okay? Sometimes I'm too loud just by myself, so if I am, just wave at me. Oh wait, is that better?
Yeah.
I'm getting no. Sorry, Doug, I'm putting it back. So folks, I have a PowerPoint presentation, but it's a little bit light. I did include some booklets on the table, and my presentation mirrors those booklets, so if you like, you can follow along if that's okay. Dave, if it's, I'm not sure what you had in mind, but maybe we could do Q&A at the end if that's possible. Okay. All right, so to begin, what I'd like to talk about tonight is our Wildflower project. We want to introduce our company, why we think we're the right people among the various companies that are in the area. We want you to judge us by who we are, by our actions, by what we say, and how we work with the community. I'd also like to talk about why we're here, why we think from our industry perspective this is the appropriate place to develop wind and solar energy. We'll talk about why our project and the specific details of the project we think are reactive to the on-the-ground characteristics that are important. And finally, we just want to talk about how we hope we can approach this project moving forward. So with that, let's just go ahead and dive in. So the right people. Who are we? Element Power is what's called an independent power producer. So we build, own, acquire, and operate utility-scale wind and solar photovoltaic projects across the United States. We also have a sister company that's part of Element Power that works in Europe. We are an American company, and we're based in Portland, Oregon. You can tell from how we're a little bit more pale than a lot of the people in the valley. Not as much sun up in Portland. Element Power was started 2 years ago, and Chris is one of the founders. I think it's important to mention something. There's a lot of gunslingers in the west of renewable energy, and who you are matters, and how you work matters. Chris came from a much larger company, Horizon Wind Energy. Many of our other executives came from larger companies. What they realized in the course of their work at those companies was that as you got bigger, your company maybe got pretty good at building projects, but didn't necessarily get as good at working with communities that are small, like your own. They broke off from those big companies with the express purpose of starting a smaller company that could be more engaging, more reactive, and more flexible in working with people. So that's part of Element's value system. We work with landowners across the United States. We work with local governments. We work with biological resources and all kinds of biologists across the U.S. So we have a lot of experience. We have 6,000 megawatts of wind energy under development across the U.S. market, as well as 1,000 megawatts of solar photovoltaic energy in development. It's a lot of energy, so we have a lot of experience and expertise. We'll talk a little bit about why we think we're the right people. Part of that is that we have a strong backing by a firm called Hudson Clean Energy Partners. Hudson is a private equity firm that has a fund that provides the resources for us to do development projects correctly. It means that we have the resources available to look at wildlife studies, to look at technical studies, like what is the geotechnical hazards of building in one place versus another, what does the hydrology tell us, what is the sound impact, what is the visual impact. We have the backing that enables us to use science to find out what exactly will happen. And finally, I would just like to say, I hope you judge us by how we behave and what we say. We think we're a good company, but we'd like to earn your trust. This is a picture, incidentally, if you guys look in the book, this is a shot from the air that gives you sort of a broad sense of a big piece of the project area. The road on the left is Munns Ranch Road, and this is Lancaster Road here. You can see some of the broad washes, Terry Munns Farms and alfalfa, and then in the top right there's a circular irrigation feature there. That's where the Fairmont Church is, so we can show you some of what that looks like. So why are we here? I think everybody has a sense of it. The trees grow sideways, the sun burns bright. You are living in what is the hottest and most productive renewable energy areas in the United States. It just happens to be the hotbed of renewable energy, and I think you know that obviously by all the projects popping up. What I'd like to tell you is that the western portion of the Antelope Valley in particular boasts the most incredible high speed and consistent winds in the state of California. People say, Nat, we know this, you don't have to tell us this, but I think it's worth mentioning. The reason it's worth mentioning is that there's a characteristic of the winds that makes it special, which is that they peak in the late afternoon. And the reason that that's important is that utility companies really have a lot of strain on their system in the late afternoon when people drive home, they turn up the AC, they put dinner in the oven. So making power available when people use it most is very important from our perspective as a company. The other thing is that the site that we have chosen, and I think I read about this in the paper, the site that we have is just over 4,000 acres of previously farmed, ranched, and disturbed agricultural private land. Most people know the Healy Ranch. I think folks know Shays Castle. These are the areas that comprise the bulk of our project area. This is not up in the hills. It is a separate project from next year's project, and I would hope that you can judge them separately as such. Our area has minimal wildlife constraints. We've done a year's worth of avian studies that looks at raptors. We fly helicopters out to survey for raptor nests. We go on the ground to look for burrowing owl. We go out and we walk in quadrangle surveys to see about terrestrial species, migration corridors, bat use and calls. Are there coyotes out there? How are they using the site? And how can we avoid any impacts to those species? The last bullet here is actually worth mentioning too, which is it matters who you have to build these projects and to operate these projects. It just so happens that the Antelope Valley has a high concentration of extremely skilled and qualified people. I was talking to folks earlier tonight who are trained electricians, who have worked in Tehachapi. We have a highly skilled workforce here that can build quality projects and operate them. So that's another reason we want to be here. Finally, you look at a map on the back, we're very close to the Antelope substation, which means that we have availability to build our power into the electrical grid. So there's a little pie chart that's in the booklet that folks will look at. As it turns out, the state of California imports a third of its energy from out of state. I'm not sure if you knew this, but it's a pretty significant number. When I fly down here from Portland, we fly over the Bonneville power line and other high voltage transmission lines that bring power from the Columbia River dams and the wind farms in the Columbia River Gorge, some of which Chris was responsible for developing and building, and bring that power down to the Los Angeles area. So local energy production is one of the features of renewable projects. We think it makes sense to build energy locally, to create jobs locally, and to bring economic development to an area that's producing the energy. The other thing is that, again, what's interesting about renewable energy is it allows dual use or multiple use. So in areas where people are farming the land, wind energy development allows you to continue using the land in a productive manner, and to do that. This is a picture of 2 turbines at a project in Spain, and I included it because it has poppies growing all among the turbines. So why is this the right project? Our project, as I said, is just over 4,000 acres, 4,200 acres. We are estimating that this can produce up to 330 megawatts of renewable energy using a combination of wind technology and solar photovoltaic energy. To do that, we need a lot of help to get there. We need your support. We need your input and feedback. We may need your passion. We may need to duke it out, but we need you. Make no mistake, we can't do this without you, and we're counting on that. One of the things this project will do is create jobs. The last report that I got from Gavia and the Antelope Valley Board of Trade said that the current unemployment rate in the valley is 17%. Our project will generate 300 jobs or more over the course of a year during construction, and depending on the use of wind and solar, how much of each, we estimate will generate between 12 and 20 permanent, good-paying jobs right here. That's significant because I get calls every week about jobs. When are you guys going to construction? I need a job. I think this is right because it can help me support my family. So I think it's an important point to make. Finally, why is this the right project? We have not baked the project already and said, here it is, what do you think? What we have done is said that our goal is to create this energy. We think we know how much. We've shown you where the land is. But what we're going to do is put forward a range of implementation options. We are proposing 3 to 4 distinct options. The first option will use a mixture of wind and solar energy to create the output on the site. We would propose using larger, modern wind turbines, probably up to 3 megawatts apiece, as many as 60 turbines in the first option that will generate this energy in conjunction with about 150 megawatts of solar photovoltaic. The other options would use all wind and then all solar. So what we're saying is, let's look at a range of options that gets us there, and let's assess what those impacts are to wildlife, to the community, to aesthetics, to noise, to jobs. And then let's make an informed decision after we have a dialogue about what people think. I can tell you that Element Power's preferred alternative would be to use a combination. And the reason for that is that wind and solar energy have site-specific characteristics. Solar is typically easy to build in flatter areas. If you've been to the Healy Ranch, there's a lot of areas that are flat, but guess what? To the south, near the aqueduct, there are quite a few hills, as you all know. Solar is an incredible energy. You can't see it from far away, but guess what? It covers a lot more ground, and that has an impact on foxes, on coyotes, on squirrels, on terrestrial species. Wind energy, conversely, only takes up 2% of the total land area, including the turbine foundations, the roads, the operations and maintenance building, and the substation. So it's a much smaller footprint. But we need to talk about what makes most sense. This is a picture in the book of a turbine foundation being laid. These are typically about 70 feet by 70 feet. They include quite a bit of cement, quite a bit of machinery to get in there. But what's interesting about them is that once these turbines are erected, the land can really come back around them. And people can use land around wind turbines because all of the circuits, all of the electronic machinery is contained within the tower. Solar, can we just do questions after? I'm not ignoring you, I promise. Solar, on the other hand, folks, you can't really walk through, okay? It requires fencing. So we need to talk about what's the impact on access. Dave and I spoke about equestrian use in the area. Where is it appropriate to have solar versus wind? People say, you know, the Healy Ranch sometimes has better poppies than the reserve. We want to go out and walk on the ranch and take pictures and enjoy the poppies. So what is the impact of solar or wind in those instances? That's the type of stuff we want to talk about. So, did I go the wrong way? Here we go. The right approach. This is a picture of our local office, which is next to Craig Van Dam's feed store on 90th Street West in Antelope Acres. We opened the office about a year ago. A couple people have said to me, Nat, I came by your office twice and you weren't there. Guilty as charged. I live in Portland. I commute down here as much as possible. We are actually looking to hire someone locally who can be here when I'm not. So I just want to apologize up front. If you've tried to contact us and couldn't get us, please talk to us tonight and we'll make sure that we find a way to stay in contact. But how you do something matters, and how you engage a community matters. And this is part of what drives our company. We want to be here to listen, to learn, and to have a conversation. We will not railroad our way into anything here. We require your support and want to be your partner. Any project that we build in this area necessarily will include some type of community investment and some type of mitigation on-site and off to account for the impacts that we're going to weigh through our EIR, our Environmental Impact Review. So make no mistake, we're not trying to pull the wool over your eyes. We're trying to work with you. We want to have a dialogue. Guess what? I fly home to Portland. I don't live here, and you do. I respect and acknowledge that. And we want to talk about how we can work together to find a project that has community support. And we're hopeful we can get there. This is a picture of a unpermitted dump that we found on the Healy Ranch. I bring it up because I saw Trash Talk. I don't know if you guys know this publication. It's all about illegal dumping in the Antelope Valley. Huge problem here. Oh, it's up there. I bring it up because we are attempting to walk our talk. We removed 37 dump truck loads of waste, including an old boat, which God knows I don't know where he used the boat on the Healy Ranch. But we removed this waste because it's the right thing to do, and because it's a demonstration of our commitment to be an environmental steward as we move forward. Finally, on the back page, this is a map of our project area. So let me just give a little bit about that. 4,200 acres make up the green area we've talked about that is the project. The brown area is the California Poppy Reserve. We all know that. We're across the way. Our eastern border is essentially Munns Ranch Road and 140th. As you come in the turn and you see Terry Munns' farm there, that's about where the project begins. As it goes west, we go as far west as 170th, and then pop out a bit further west in that little square that you see sticking out to the left. This area here is Shays Castle, the Castle Ranch, 512 acres to the south. We're going to be leading tours if anyone is interested in visiting the castle and in visiting our project site. We're going to have a sign up to talk about that. This is one of the resources in our project that, again, is important to the community, and we want to talk about how that might benefit the community. Finally, I'd point out in the bottom left, the area here. This is the Leona Valley Hunting Club, if anyone knows Dave Whiteside. Dave's property is a piece of the project. There will still be hunting that can go along with wind and solar energy. So that's a broad overview. Oops. And I thank you for your attention. We're here to answer questions, so if you're into it, we can go there. Thank you.
Well, yeah, what I'll do is I'll just recognize people and then we'll go from there. Okay, and if we could have your name just so the secretary can get it down.
Cindy Bonanno. How much fire clearance is the county going to require you to have around per turbine? Because that's a big deal. We have to keep clear in our homes, and this is one of that bridges, an extremely high fire area. And
Kristen, do you guys want to come up just in case there are questions that you're better suited to answer so we can be there? Thanks for your question, Cindy. My short answer is I don't know yet, but let me give an example.
I'm sorry, I just can't see the county allowing the poppies to grow up to a turbine as pretty as that looks on screen. I just don't see the county allowing that because of fire issues. If somebody's got to work on it, a welder starts a fire. We've got big problems with fires in LA County because there are so many homes in the mountains and hills.
Sure. So obviously, LA County doesn't have any existing operating wind farms yet, so there is no standard. Sorry.
As I probably don't need to tell anybody here, Los Angeles County doesn't have any permitted operating wind farms yet, so I can't point you to an example of what they've required elsewhere. But I can tell you from having developed hundreds of megawatts of operating projects in very arid areas that look a lot like the vegetation here in eastern Oregon and eastern Washington, from our perspective, a grassland fire is not going to hurt the turbine. We're happy to have grass right up to the edge of the turbine because the base of the turbine...
Well, I'm not really concerned about your turbine being injured. I'm concerned about the homes and everything else because of the high winds. Once a grass fire starts up here, it goes crazy and
Right.
it can go far. And it can get into the trees and the scrub oaks and manzanitas,
Right.
which are,
So all I'm trying to say is from our perspective, we would want to clear as little land as the government
I
makes
know,
us
but the
clear.
county's going to at least make you clear at least 100 feet around each turbine.
So that's not common in the rest of the United States.
No, but this is LA County.
Right. So we'll see. We would be, actively trying to keep as much. We don't see any reason why you need to do that. Turbines don't emit sparks. They don't emit fire. You mentioned welding. We're not out there welding on these things. These are big modern machines. You build them once, you leave them there. The kind of maintenance that we perform is all inside the tower, up inside the nacelle. There's no external maintenance on these machines. So from our perspective, we would propose to have a very limited cleared area. We'll obviously do whatever the county insists that we do, but we don't see a need to have a large cleared area around these machines.
The NextEra wind turbines, according to their photograph, which they distributed to these people and others, can be at their vertical extension 492 feet. Yours looks substantially smaller. What are the dimensions of yours, or are you using the same size turbine?
So, great question. What we're proposing is a range of different technologies. The biggest turbine that we would consider using at this point, but again, the technology changes, is a 3 megawatt turbine, which is in fact the size that you've just mentioned. So from the base of the turbine to the nacelle or the hub, it's approximately 330 feet.
And then the extension?
To the blade tip height, 490 feet or so. 491, I think, is the number, but we can, 1 foot at that height probably doesn't matter. In our first option, we're proposing using bigger turbines, but fewer of them. They're spaced further apart. You don't use as many. In our second implementation option that you'll see in our proposal, some people have said, Nat, I don't like how tall these things are. I can kind of live with them, but I don't want to see it break the horizon line, etc. So we say, let's investigate that. Let's use smaller turbines, but in order to put the same amount of energy out for the project, you need more of them. They will be closer together. So we're going to look at that and have people tell us what they think.
May I ask another question? The other thing that people were asking about quite a bit was what your light array is, and there was a rather intriguing answer from Mr. Graham from NextEra. I'd like to hear what your answer is. Does each turbine have its own flashing lights, or how does this work?
So someone last night had said, the damn Christmas tree across the way, I can't stand it. What I would suggest is that the Christmas tree effect of wind energy at night is becoming more of a Charlie Brown type of Christmas tree. In other words, the lighting that at one point in the technology was on every single turbine, the FAA actually determined to be very distracting to pilots, that it kind of made them lose their sense and that it was in fact a hazard. What we're seeing now is actually lighting on the perimeter, so on the exterior boundaries of a project. So fewer lights, but make no mistake, there certainly will be some lighting required for FAA.
Okay.
Yes, sir?
In just about an hour, you're going to see all of that lighting.
Yeah.
I trust me.
Those are not old windmills either.
And you're going to see Edison
So
too.
the FAA let them build a moving a windmill with a large bank of lights that flash all at once.
What, oh, here you go.
I don't know about the new FAA rules and why they didn't use them in Tehachapi.
So
And
the,
it's approximately 40, at least 40 miles from here.
Yeah.
so the just to be clear, if we, you know, the lights are required by the FAA. The wind companies, that's just an extra cost to us to buy them and to run them. So we're not in favor of having a lot of extra lights. My former company was one of the handful of companies that actually paid for the FAA to send people around the country, and we had them go look at wind farms and showed them how ridiculous the standards were because they were requiring lights, white flashing during the day and red flashing at night on every single turbine. And we convinced them to back